Welcome to the Lazy CEO Podcast, where Jim Schleckser, author of Great CEOs Are Lazy and founder of the CEO Project, features compelling experts and topics for CEOs of mid to large-size companies. Now, let's get started with the show.
Welcome, everybody, to another Lazy CEO podcast. My name is Jim Schleckser, and I am your host today. And I'm also the founder of the CEO Project. And that's sort of the prelude to this conversation today. The work we do at the CEO Project is relevant. What we do is we work with CEOs. I have for almost 20 years now. And before that, I ran companies. And, you know, in that time frame, we've talked to probably 5,000 CEOs, good, bad, and not so good or average. And then we're personally with hundreds and hundreds of CEOs. We have well over 100 CEOs that we work with every day to improve their business. But there's another side to this, and which is, you know, there are patterns of errors or patterns of mistakes that we observe kind of all the time. And y'all think you're completely unique and you're making new mistakes that nobody ever made before, but I just want to let you know that you may not be doing that. There are a couple that people make all the time. And, you know, because businesses have patterns and people have patterns. And so we end up kind of in the same place, even though we're doing it under slightly different circumstances. So what I want to do today is talk about top 10. And actually, I'm going to give you a bonus 11th, sort of significant mistakes that we see leaders and managers, and we deal mostly with CEOs, but I think many of these are applicable also to managers. So if you're running a group or running a department or run a smaller chunk, you know, some of these may fit. So I will try to avoid to mention names. So my stories will be largely anonymized because some of them will be a little embarrassing. But, you know, if your name fits, you might want to think about this. You know, maybe one or two of these will resonate. Like, oh, son of a gun, I think he's talking about me. I'm probably not, but, you know, if the shoe fits, maybe there's an opportunity to learn and do something different. So let's dig in. And these are in no particular order, although the last one's probably the most important one. But, you know, so don't read like, oh, number one is the most important. This is the order in which I developed them. So the first one is that you don't delegate. And, you know, I've talked before about delegation. It's not particularly easy. It's a high trust move. And as we've talked before, it needs to be contextual. When something's very high risk, we're careful about delegating. When we have a low experience team, we're careful about delegating. When it's irreversible, not everything's reversible at some level, but largely irreversible or painfully irreversible, then you got to be careful. If it doesn't fit those criteria, like it's low risk, it's not going to sink the ship, it's reversible, you know, delegate hard, like get rid of stuff. You know, it is hard to do it in the beginning, but once you get the hang of delegating and you get good at it, oh my gosh, it is life-changing in terms of your stress level, your workload, and frankly, your ability to develop other people. And I think that's the thing that people miss on delegation is that if I substituted the word develop your people for delegate, you'd say, you should develop your people more, delegate. You go, well, yeah, of course I should. I go, yeah, you should. And yet a lot of people don't do it. So, A, you're not developing your people, but more importantly, you become a point of constraint in the business. You're holding on to things, prevents other people from growing and prevents the company from growing as well. So delegation is probably my number one. Well, it's number one thing I thought of. So maybe it is the number one thing. On the other side of that is control and micromanagement. And there are people that have extremely high control needs, as I like to say, control enthusiasts from the commercial that's out there. And they just need to know everything. They need the information. And I used to work with bosses where they would be just information freaks. I called them infomaniacs. Say that carefully. Infomaniacs. And, you know, there was no amount of information I could give these people that they wouldn't take. And then they wanted more. And I spent a lot of time satisfying these information needs they had, these control needs they had. And I used to ask the question, I go like, why do you need this information? What's going to change if I give you this information? Well, nothing. I just need to know. And that's a demonstration of a high control engagement. Now, occasionally, to our point about delegation, that may make some sense. But talk about clipping the wings of people underneath you. If you are just sticking your nose in their business all the time, whether you mean it or not, the way that is interpreted is, I don't trust you. I don't trust you because I need to stick my nose into everything you're doing, analyze every decision, be involved in every meeting. They'd say, no, I just want the information. Well, why? And it's very easy to get down to that place of like, my boss doesn't trust me. My boss doesn't trust me. So if you've got high control needs or you're an infomaniac, this is a rate limiting process. A, you can only take in so much information, but B, you are implicitly indicating to everybody in your organization that you don't trust them. You don't trust them. And I'm pretty sure most of us, we just want to know. Well, there's got to be a way to do it that you can satisfy your information needs and allow people to do their thing without you looking over their shoulder. And for anybody who's experienced it, you know what I'm saying here. It's a pretty horrible kind of way to live, that thinking your boss is looking over your shoulder, even if there's no consequences. So the other thing to think about is in a lot of these things that these are internal issues. In other words, the need for control is all about you. It actually has nothing to do with the company. It has nothing to do with the people you're working around. It has nothing to do with the business you're in. It is you. It is something happened in your life that gets you to the place that you need all this information. And so the work here, if you will, I don't mean to be a therapist or anything, but the work to do is on yourself. Like, why do I have such huge information needs? Why do I need to know all this stuff? What would change if I didn't know it? Those are the kinds of questions you might want to ask yourself, and then, experiment, try it in a little way. Don't go to the weekly meeting. See what happens. Don't read that report. See what happens. I can tell you, as a professional non-report reader, it works out okay most of the time, frankly. Once in a great while, they go, hey, did you read that thing on page 37 of the report I sent you? I go, nope, I didn't. And they go, well, here's what it says. Nobody cares that you didn't read it. Well, most people don't care. Anyway, so control is the second one on the sort of big managerial mistakes. The third one is what I call switchboard operator. And switchboard operator is another way to say this is all roads lead to Rome. And what that means is when a decision needs to be made, the organization is incapable of making it unless they consult with you. And I mean before the decision. So when we talk about, sort of levels of delegation and how you engage with a company, there is a C, consult me before the decision is made. And there are organizations where all decisions go to the top leader and they are consulted before the decision is concluded. This could be what food are we going to serve at the company picnic? And we're going to consult the CEO over that. Or what color are the napkins going to be? Or like crazy little things go through the CEO for decision making. And you'd argue, well, geez, Jim, I'm a really good decision maker. That makes all kinds of sense. Yeah, but I liken the picture to those old time like operators where they've got, somebody calls in and they would literally plug the connection of the call into the person they were calling. And, 100 calls an hour they can handle, 200 calls an hour they can handle. How about 1,000 calls an hour, 2,000 calls an hour? And that's what's happening to you as a CEO or as a leader. When you are the connection point for all things, you run out of you. There's only so many you can make. And you end up with this backlog, this constipation in the organization that decisions don't get made because they can't get in front of you to get the decision made because all decisions have to be made by you. And that will limit your growth organizationally. You are now the point of constraint because all decisions go through you. It relates to the delegation thing, but it's a very particular case of it. And sometimes, by the way, it comes from incredible levels of competency, like you've just done every job and you know everything. And so people come to you naturally. But, funny enough, you have to actually, and by the way, as leaders, we get great ego satisfaction from solving people's problems. They come to us, we go, da, 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 here's the answer. And, trumpets go off and everybody leaves and we're all happy. And I feel good because I added value that day. And what I'm telling you is you're satisfying your ego by solving people's problems is inhibiting the growth of the organization. The question should be, back to delegation, how do I cause people to grow themselves and solve these problems themselves and not come to me? Now, that is hard. A couple of reasons. You've built a pattern that people come to you. And so that's the way they do it. And when the first time you go, and I used to do this all the time when I was leading companies, I go, two people come, hey, we got this problem. I'm like, I'd listen to it and I go, I think you two can solve this problem. You don't need me. Leave my office, please. And they would leave. And I go, what the heck just happened? Doesn't he normally solve our problems for us? And the answer was, I was trying to cause them to stretch to figure it out on their own. Now, 9 times out of 10, they came back, they go, hey, we figured that out. Here's what we're going to do. So they informed me after they decided, which is better. And I'm like, great answer. Go, done. And it may or may not have been the answer I would have come up with, but they own it and they grew it. And so the next time they have a problem like this, they're going to solve it themselves and they don't need me. So I was teaching the organization to solve their own problems with that move. So if you're doing the switchboard operator thing, start pushing back. You don't need me involved in this. You can make this decision. One of my favorite lines was, I have complete trust that you can figure this out. And I did. Well, most of the time I did, but I always said it. So, and 99% of the time they figured it out, and it was good enough or it was perfect. And I didn't have to be involved. My time involvement went to 0. That's the key thing. You freed up time. So switchboard operator. The fourth one here is trapped in a role. And this happens all the time. In fact, I was talking to a friend of mine and she happens to be in academics and struggling to find a professor for a particular class. So she was going to teach the class and she's supposed to be running the department. And I said, listen, that's not your job. Your job is to run the department, not to teach classes. And that's exactly what we all do. We go, oh, in fact, I was talking to a CEO the other day. He said, I lost my VP of sales, or I fired him or her. I don't remember what happened to the person. So I'm going to do the job for a while. I'm like, ruh-roh, that's a problem. Because if you go into a role, you go into player mode, as I describe in my book, you do a job. Like, I'm just kind of covering for a while, right? It is very easy to get trapped in that role. You pop your head up 6 months later and you're like, why am I still the VP of sales and the CEO? And by the way, what that means is you're doing a really crappy job of being a CEO while you're trying to be a pretty decent VP of sales, or you're doing them both pretty poorly because those are two really big jobs. And so I think I'm okay with diving into a role occasionally. I'm fine with that. But you got to think about it like a bad party. When you go to a bad party, like, it's the neighbors down the street. They've invited us. We've got to show up, but we really don't want to go, right? So what do? You go, we're going to go in. We're going to spend 45 minutes. We're going to make sure we say hi to the host and hostess. We're going to grab a drink. I'm going to give you the sign and we're going to leave quick like bunny. Know where the door is because we're heading for the door. That's how you should think about going into a role. I'm going into the role. I'm going to do it for a certain amount of time. I know exactly how I'm going to get out of it. And then I'm going to hit the exit and get off of this thing. And so, normally the way to solve being in a role that you want to get out of is either you got to hire talent or you got to change the process so it doesn't require a leader. So process or talent is always the answer on how to get out of a role. But don't get trapped. It's a bad party. You got to know where the exit is and you got to know how long you're sticking around the bad party. So trapped in a role happens all the time. And I see this particularly like when entrepreneurs are growing their company. And let's say they were really gifted, whatever, engineer, salesperson, finance person, whatever. And they go, yeah, I'm the CEO, but I also do the CFO job. I'm like, why? Well, I'm really good at it and it doesn't really take any time. But here's the thing they miss. And this is about marginal economics, which is lost opportunity cost. Specifically, when you're spending time balancing the books every month, you could be spending time finding a new partner, buying a new company, expanding the margin of your business, doing all kinds of things that are way more about hiring a new VP of sales, all these things way more valuable than balancing the books. So it's not like I get that you're great. I get that it's easy, but what you could be doing with that time is something much more valuable than the thing you are doing with that time. And that's why you don't want to get trapped in a role. Once in a while, for a little while, fine, but just know where the door is. Let's move to another one, which is hiring and specifically hiring too low or satisficing. So this comes a couple of ways. One is if you lack a little confidence And, we all have a little bit of an imposter syndrome. I'll admit that. I think almost every CEO I know is like, I kind of can't believe that I'm the person running this company. I'm just this girl that grew up in Ohio. I mean, who am I, right, to be running this company? But you're the one. So we all feel that a little bit. But you got to be really careful, because sometimes that lack of confidence shows up in who you hire. And it shows up in this way. If they are incredibly accomplished, whether it's degree or successes or whatever, you can find them threatening. Even though you're the big shot CEO, I get that, or manager, VP, whatever you are, we can find people threatening, like, gosh, this person should have my job. I've actually heard that. And the right answer there is, then you should hire them. Because if somebody's got that kind of competency, they're going to come and have an amazing impact on your business. And you know what? If they take your job and kick you upstairs to whatever, chairman or chairperson or whatever, awesome. Nothing wrong with that. So you want to really hire high. And the mistake is hiring low. I can't have somebody like that. They'll just leave me. They'll come here and they'll be gone in a year because they're so good. They'll want to go find another job. Stop that noise. Stop that mental trash talk. Hire as high as you possibly can for the money you can spend. And, there are limits economically, right? There are $500,000 salespeople and there are $150,000 salespeople. You're going to hire what you can hire, but hire as high as you can, as capable as you can every single time. And if that makes you feel uncomfortable, you know what? Deal with it. You're paid the big bucks. Like, feeling uncomfortable is part of the job. And if you are always comfy cozy, I'm smarter and better than everybody in my company because I hired down effectively, you're going to limit your growth. Like, those are not the people that will push you to the next level. They will listen to you. You'll end up in switchboard operator because you're the all-knowing, all-seeing CEO. Non-threatening, but you're not going to grow. If you want a comfy life, it's not a bad move. But if you want to grow, you got to hire high. You got to hire to the point that you're uncomfortable. And I've hired people, and I go, give this person 2 or 3 years, they should have my job. And fine. It's okay. Nothing wrong with that. I'll do something different. All right. In fact, I know another situation I was dealing with, somebody who runs a fairly big program, and they're hiring some new individual contributors. And they're hiring, frankly, abysmally poor people because they don't want to be threatened by anybody. It's just, and what it's going to do is actually diminish the entire organization as a result of it. Because the people that are clients are going to see the caliber of people. It's a professional services organization. They're going to see the caliber of people this individual is bringing in. They're going to go, why am I dealing with this place? Like, they're no smarter than I am. I wouldn't even hire them for a job in my company. Why would I deal with them in this mode? So hire high. The next one is, and this is a bit of a weird one, and this is not for everybody, but this is being delusional. Sounds weird, like mental illness, but you would be surprised potentially at the number of CEOs, like really smart, capable people that are completely delusional about reality. They do not accept reality. They're on some other planet thinking about God knows what. This is notwithstanding the new use of psychedelic drugs in the Silicon Valley. This is just people that don't get it. They hear things, somehow it doesn't process, and then they just move right through it. Now, there's a story about Henry Ford where he had a bunch of engineers. He brought them in. And he said, hey, I want you to design a V8 engine. And they go, sir, it's impossible. Can't be done. He goes, I know that. Go try to do it. They came back 6 months later. Sir, we tried everything we know. We can't do it. A V8 engine cannot be designed. He goes, I don't care. You're the ones that are going to do it. Go figure it out. They went back. They go, sir, it just can't be done. Can't be done. There's no way mechanically or technically to do it. He goes, I don't believe that. You're the ones that are going to do it. Go back and figure out how to make a V8 engine. They came back the third time and they had figured it out. Now, here he used a suspension of belief to try to drive people to a higher level. Once in a while, that's okay. Look, and here he understood that it was hard. He was not delusional, but he used it to accomplish big things. I'm talking about people that just don't get it. Like, they get told 37 times that something can't be done and they still don't believe it, or they don't understand why a customer wouldn't do business with them, even though they've been told very explicitly. So not hearing reality as a leader is an incredibly dangerous thing, because you will march your company into the wrong place. You'll waste resources. And ultimately, people are going to leave. They're going to go, I cannot follow this person. They're delusional. They just are not connected to reality. So you got to be really careful. And you got to check yourself. For me, I check myself because I'm a really optimistic person. So that is an element of deluding myself sometimes, where, hey, things are going to work out. Well, no, sometimes they don't work out, right? And but I'm always positive. And that is an element of being delusional. I know that. And so I really have to be conscious of that and check myself against other people that maybe have a more colder view of the universe or are more connected to the data. That am I missing something here? Am I deluding myself? And so you got to constantly be checking yourself if you are sort of that always forward optimistic kind of entrepreneurial spirit, because you can be delusional if it goes too far. Like optimism to an extreme is delusional. So you got to be really careful on this one. Next one is don't know the numbers. So there are people that go, hey, Jim, I'm just bad at math. I get that. God gave me the gift of numbers. I get numbers really well. Lucky me. But the language of business is money and numbers. And you cannot run a business if you do not understand your numbers at some level. Now, look, I don't want you to be CFOs. I get that. No, I'm not looking for CFOs, but you have to have a reasonable facility with the numbers around your business: revenue, margin, profit, costs. You need to have like accounting 101 level knowledge in your business. And there are people that like, no, it's all about the people. I lead the people. They run into very big potholes because they forget the economics of the business. And, they're all having a good time and they got great culture and they talk about their people and they miss the fact that we're here to make money. Now, look, yes to all of the above, and let's make money. Let's understand our numbers. I dealt recently with an entrepreneur. He built a business and all he talked about was how cool is it what we did and the community we built and how much people love us, and completely forgot the economics of the business. And consequently, the business went out of business. It went out of business because he forgot it. He completely forgot it. And I don't know if he didn't know or he was delusional or whatever, but I'm just saying you got to be connected to your numbers. And it goes back to rule number one. I had a buddy who was starting a business and he goes, Jim, I'm starting my new business. What do I need to know? I said, there's three things you need to know. Number one is don't run out of money, because if you run out of money, the game stops and you're out of business. You go, okay, got that. Don't run out of money. What's number two? Number two is don't run out of money. And number three is don't run out of money. In other words, nothing else matters. So if you're not connected to your cash, you're not connected to the money, you can miss this one and all of a sudden the merry-go-round stops. So you got to know your numbers. A couple more here. We're almost done. Next one is you can outthink the organization. And this happens all the time with entrepreneurs because we're all like fast twitch. Let's get it done. Let's move. Let's solve the problem. Blah, blah, blah. The problem is most normal humans don't move that speed. They're also probably not as smart as you are on average. Like I go, what's the average intelligence in your organization? They go, I don't know. I'm like, how about average? Because you have enough people. The average intelligence of your people is average. And if you're above, you can easily outthink an organization. Easily. And so this shows up in this way. And I did this, right? I made this mistake. So, I would come up with the 10-point plan. I'm going to do this. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. That I had 10 things we're going to do, leading to world domination, right? Of our particular category. And, I could see it. I could see the connections. I knew how we were going to do it. Done. I made the mistake of showing the 10-point plan to my team and the organization. And they thought I was smoking hashish. Like, what is this guy thinking? Like, how can he possibly believe these? How would he know these things are going to happen? I'm like, I could explain it. I knew it was going to happen, but I was outthinking the organization. So what I learned is if you can develop your 10-point plan, knock yourself out, show the first three, only three. Here are the three things we got to do next. Then once you knock one down, you show them the next one, and then the next one and the next one. You'll do all 10 eventually, potentially, but only show the first three. The other thing that happens along these lines is once an organization is sort of stabilized and growing and doing the right thing, I deal with a CEO in the software business that does this all the time. He's very twitchy, very smart, he needs to be moving, right? He's like vibrates. He needs to move. he got to the point where the organization, they were delivering revenue, they were growing every year, they were satisfying customers, they were improving their retention. And he's off coming up with a whole new plan of what he's going to do with the company. I'm like, stop thinking. You got there. You just go take a vacation, leave. Your organization will run better if you don't do this than if you do it. And so many times, and this is really hard as leaders and entrepreneurs, the do nothing option is sometimes the best option when things are running pretty good. If you're massively missing your numbers, fine, jump in. But you can, A, limit how much you show the organization of your like long-term plan. And 2, sometimes the answer is don't do anything as a leader. And there I would say, invest in things that don't involve a lot of other people that can create future growth. Go talk to potential partners, go look at trying to hire some interesting people, so forth. Don't involve a lot of people. Don't twist the organization up every time you have a crazy idea that you woke up at 2 a.m. and scribbled on a pad next to your bed. Or the other side, every time you read a book, we rotate the company towards the latest book. Now you can do it for my book, but nobody else's book should you do that for. And we've all dealt with leaders that like, all right, Jim read a book this weekend and now we're going to be a learning organization, right? So be careful about outthinking your organization. 3 more here. Holding people accountable is actually quite hard. And some people are good at it and some people are not good at it. But the ability to sort of set objectives, come back to those objectives on a regular basis and go, hey, here's how I think you're doing. How do you think you're doing? Regular conversation about that. And I mean like monthly, weekly, quarterly, something, frequently. They should know where they sit. They should know how they're doing. And you should hold them accountable. Like, hey, you're below what I expect you to do here. I think you need to like step it up in this particular area. You're missing the numbers. And here's, it's a little biblical, but I hate the sin and I love the sinner. Like, I don't think they're a bad person. They're just missing the numbers. If they're still like, they buy the culture and we want them around here and they're trying hard and they're learning and like, they're just not making it at the moment. I go like, we'll work with people like that. So I hate the sin. I love the sinner. So that's the way to think about this. Like, I want to hold you, but people think and people take it personally. And some people think they mean it personally. It should never be personal. It's not personal. It's data. It's just data. If you don't get the data on how you're doing, how are you going to get better? And that's the problem with it. This benign neglect position of like, I don't want to like make her mad and tell her she's not doing a great job. Like, that's worse. That's like not watering your flowers. Like you're killing them over time instead of killing them right away. So you need to be direct and come from and Kim Scott has the book Radical Candor. And I buy this, a place of compassion. I think you're a great person. I love you. Like you. Can't say love in the current environment, but I like you. I think you're good. But I think there's some things you're doing that need to change. So that's it. Just like you would do with your kids. Like your kids screw up. You go, I still love you, but you screwed up. Like you crashed the car, you screwed up. And there may even be some penalties for crashing the car, but I still love you, right? So that's the way to come at this. But you got to hold people accountable because they need it, you need it, and it's just good human relations. And then related to that is an unwillingness to have the really hard conversations. And you know, that's maybe extending accountability to the next level, but it's his own thing. And that is, you know, it's not working out. This is not the place for you. That's a really hard conversation to have. And I think particularly as entrepreneurs, when we're growing our business, we've brought people in that trusted us, liked us, believed in our mission. And we are potentially in a position of saying, yeah, it's not going to work out. You can't be here anymore. And that's horrible. Like it could be your brother, sister-in-law, or your roommate from college, or your neighbor, or who knows what, because, you know, we collect people as we go. And, you know, you grow to the point that they are no longer competent. You got to have that conversation. And the mistake is we don't want to have what is a very difficult conversation for both parties, by the way, and we avoid it. And so we tolerate low performance. That has negative implications to the organization. We tolerate the low performance in the role, so we never get the value out of it that we want to. Here's the thing. You really think they don't know they're not performing? They're probably not very happy. There have been times when I come to somebody and I say, hey, listen, I need to talk about how it's going. And I think you and I both know it's not going particularly well. And they go, oh, thank God. I'm like, what? They go, You cannot imagine how much stress I'm under right now. I know that. It's killing me. It's hurting my family life. It's affecting my health. It's like, okay, great. Let's figure out a way to make this good for you. Now, that might be move them to another job, by the way. I don't necessarily mean fire them. That's actually my last option. But let's find a place you can be super successful. It's not here. It's not doing this. So let's figure that out. That's a hard conversation. We have an obligation as leaders to have it. Lots of leaders avoid it because it's hard. We don't like to do hard things sometimes. So, you got to buck up. It's why we have the job. We get the goodies that come with the job. This is one of the bad things that comes with the job. And you just have to deal with it. And then the last one, and it is funny. I run into this all the time, and you would think this never happens, but is that you stop learning as a leader. And I'll deal with people like I'll deal with a guy, 50 years old, which I used to think is old, but that's not old anymore. And then they go, oh, I'm too old to learn email. I'm like, dude, are you kidding me? Like, what are you talking about? You're too old. Like, so, or the other way they'll say it like they know enough not to say that. They go, I'm more in the teaching phase of my life than the learning phase of my life. I teach people. I don't need to really, I've learned what I need to learn. Baloney. So the idea that you stop learning is a crime as a leader. Why? Well, one is new stuff's happening all the time. And if you're not aware of it and modifying your approach based on new things in your environment, then you're going to miss a trick. You'll become disconnected from, call it your mental model will become disconnected from reality, meaning how you think the world works and how the world works will be so different that you're going to make big mistakes. Because that's kind of how we start on our decision making. Okay, what's going on around here? I'll make a decision. If I don't understand what's going on, I'm going to make bad decisions. So that's certainly one. But the other is, what if I said, nobody in your organization is going to learn anything anymore? They are as is when you got them. You go, well, that's a problem. We got to learn all that. We got to learn about ceramic technology or ChatGPT or this new accounting standard or international trade or whatever. I go, exactly. So if you've stopped learning and you're the modeler of behavior for your organization, what do you expect them to do? So we need to model learning. We need to actively learn, not only model it because it'll help our organization grow and learn, but also because we're going to grow and learn. And as your organization expands, you got to learn new tricks. You got to change it up. If you do exactly what you did when you were $10 million, you're not going to go to $100 million. You have to change your leadership behavior. So this is constant learning. So stopping learning and that maybe is the number one item. Like if you're learning, you probably can figure most things out. If you stop learning, you're kind of dead. And funny enough, this one is biblical as well. It's Proverbs 18:15. It's Old Testament, so it works for everybody pretty much. And it talks about learning. You have to keep your eyes open and learn. And so learning is probably number one mistake. Got to keep learning as a leader. You need to demonstrate it, and you need your organization to keep learning. So that was 11. I said 10. I gave you 11. A little bonus material. I hope you pick something up there, and maybe as you're listening, you go, oh man, I think I might be doing that. And, be happy to engage with anybody about like, hey, how do you get around these things? I gave you a couple of ideas, but all of them have subtlety. They're unique to your position and to your experience. So just if something hit you in the bullseye, let's have a think, and maybe there were a few ideas on there on how to get around it. As always, I appreciate you spending time with us. We'll see you next time on the Lazy CEO podcast. Cheers. This podcast is brought to you by the CEO Project. At the CEO Project, we work with CEOs to help them grow their business. And our members represent billions of dollars of revenue and profit. And frankly, amongst all of us, we've probably made every mistake in the book, including some you haven't made yet. So if you want to learn from the experience of a bunch of really seasoned CEOs, we're a great place to hang out. In this podcast, what you're going to hear are some of those ideas, concepts, and things that are just going to help you on your journey. If you want to find out more, reach out to us at theceoproject.com, or you can contact me personally at jim@theceoproject.com. Happy listening.
Thanks for listening to the Lazy CEO podcast. We'll see you next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes, and check out our website, www.theceoproject.com.